What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fann of showmefootball.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. He's Michael D'Arcy of KC Sports Report, and the Chiefs' edge position just took a substantial hit. We'll talk about it right after this. Ladies and gentlemen of the Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back into another video on my channel. Before we get into today's topic, I did want to remind everyone to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find it. But without further ado, let's get into the topic. So, Michael, breaking news from earlier today. This is from Matt Derrick on X of Chiefs Digest. He says that the Kansas City Chiefs will be placing Felix Anudike-Uzomah on IR, likely ending his season. I guess this is from a hamstring injury that he sustained in the last preseason game. Actually, shout out to How About Those Chiefs, but he was the one that noticed it when not a lot of people did. But I guess Felix could hardly walk on the leg in which the hamstring injury occurred, but not many people caught that small detail at the end of the last preseason game. So I guess it's going to end his season. Now, I guess before anything else, Michael, I'll ask you, do you think this move is indicative of Felix Anudike-Uzomah truly not being physically able to return at any point this season? Or is this more so the Chiefs saying the roster spot is probably more valuable at this point than any contributions Felix was going to make this year?
That's a good question. I feel like it's probably more indicative of the injury, just because, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess you've had examples in the past where the Chiefs have, done some interesting things, and then it like came out that okay, he actually had to get surgery. Like Sky Moore going on IR last year with the core muscle injury. I was like, okay, the core muscle injury. It was actually a core muscle injury. He had surgery, so I kind of felt like an asshole there. But I think it's probably a hamstring injury. And I wonder if he tore it off the bone or something just gruesome like that. But I think he's probably injured. But I also think at the same time, they're probably not rushing to get him back.
Right. No, and guys, we're going to be attacking this story from all angles today. As far as the injury, what it means for the Kansas City Chiefs, what it means for Felix. And the first thing that I thought of, Michael, when I saw the news was, I think, unfortunately, this kind of cements Felix's position as a draft bust. And it's unfortunate but I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. He was going into year 3 after a very underwhelming first 2 seasons. And you could have made the argument that this was going to be the make or break year for him. And maybe we would have seen something, but even in preseason, Michael, I mean, he was playing late into these games with the 3rd and 4th teams on defense. And even then, he wasn't really making an impact. And I think we've kind of learned over the years too, especially, with a lot of these rookies that come into the NFL, I think more than ever, they're contributing right away. And more often than not now, I feel like with these rookies, especially, we have a lot of examples on the Chiefs. If they're not making splash plays in the first few years or giving you some sort of moment that says, wow, this guy is going to be a player, more often than not, they're just not going to pan out. And the warning signs were there with Felix in year 1 when he could barely get on the field. Sky Moore was another one. We were told to wait and that this is how it is for wide receivers in the Andy Reid system, but then he just continued to not do anything. But then you look at the positive examples like Xavier Worthy. We knew right away, Michael, he came in, he made plays as a first-round pick. Felix Anudike-Uzomah was a first-round pick, but a very disappointing one. And it's just hard to see at this point, if he's to return next year, going into year 4 after doing nothing through 3 years, that he's going to do anything.
Maybe this is a flaw that I have as a person, but I'm very quick to write people off. I was very quick to write Sky Moore off. I was very quick to write, Felix off. I kind of wrote Clyde off after, his second season, because his rookie season was actually solid. But yeah. I feel like most of the time, if guys are bad, they don't just magically get good. That's just not how the NFL works. I think you can have if Felix followed the Mike Dana archetype, like where he just was basically, 2-sack, 4-sack season, 6-sack season. And then like, if there was steady progression, that's one thing, but there really was no steady progression with Felix. And yeah, I think he's the biggest bust that Brett Veach has ever drafted. And I think part of it is not all of Brett Veach's fault. I think that Clark Hunt had his hand in that draft a lot. The organization wanted to pick a Kansas City kid, someone from K-State, and Felix was drafted. So I think it makes sense from that point of view. But he's been a horrible player. He's not been a good player in this system, and maybe some of it is coaching related, but he just hasn't made plays.
Well, we talked about this on your channel, and I hinted at this, but I'll bring it up here. You could also make the argument that Felix Anudike-Uzomah was a victim of Steve Spagnuolo. And I pointed this out many times, and I think we're starting to get more and more examples of this, where Brett Veach brings in a player that has this profile of, hey, I'm an athletic edge rusher. I've got a little bit of bend, I can do some of these other things that other guys can't. And Spags just can't find a use for them. And it feels like a disconnect because we've seen it with Josh Uche. We've seen it with Felix now. He was more of a 3-4, stand-up rusher in college. And Steve Spagnuolo tried to turn him into this, 4-3 run stopper. And we're kind of seeing the same thing right now with Omar Norman-Lott, where, he's a pass rush specialist, and they're telling him to put on weight and bulk up so he can play nose tackle. And it's like, what are we doing with these guys? But going back to your point about, how there was pressure from Clark Hunt to kind of make this selection, I agree. And I think, he said, hey, we're not trading this pick. I think Veach probably would have traded out of the first round, probably, if not for the fact that the draft was in Kansas City. However, at the same time, it's not like Clark Hunt forced Brett Veach to pick a bad player, because there were some good players that went after Felix Anudike-Uzomah. And sometimes I kind of hear that excuse, it's hard to draft, good players at the end of the round. And that is true to an extent, especially in the later rounds, but this was a first round pick and it just didn't work out. Simple as that.
No. And I think the Chiefs, he's going to be on the roster next year. Like, there's no way he's not. But
well, we talked about it before, Michael. They ride their guys out to the bitter end, and I think it's going to be the same with Felix.
But I'll tell you what, they're not picking up that 5th year option.
No.
He is not going to be here for a 5th year. And I think, it's okay to admit that he hasn't worked out, but if you're looking at this like, okay, like he'll be back next year, maybe next year he can have a bounce back season and kind of break out. If you've got that mindset, you're a K-State fan. Point blank simple. Like no one outside of you guys thinks that he's going to do anything.
Yeah, no, and it's really tough. And like, I know you're a KU fan. I'm a Mizzou fan. We don't like K-State, but that doesn't mean that we didn't want Felix to work out. I mean, you guys know how badly I would love for the Chiefs to have an athletic edge rusher that works out. I've been banging that drum for years, and I thought, Felix had a chance. When they drafted him, I thought, wow, this is kind of a little bit outside of what Spags typically goes for. I like this, and it hasn't worked out. But, my next concern now following this injury, Michael, is that, Felix was going to be in the rotation this year, no? Like, regardless of what you thought about him as a player coming into this year, he was going to get snaps. Like, he was in the rotation. Now, he might have been further down the depth chart than a lot of Chiefs fans wanted to see at this point in his career, but he was going to play. The way I see it, you're losing a rotation player. You need to go out and get someone that can be in your rotation. I mean, do I have any disagreeers there, Michael?
No. I think it's kind of crazy to think that the Chiefs had him in the plans on defense in 2025, but I do think that with him most likely being out the remainder of the season, you're going to have to go pick somebody up, whether it is someone that gets cut from their team that they're currently on and they're available during that roster cutdown period, or maybe someone in free agency. They should go look at getting somebody, because you're an injury away from being in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, look, the Felix injury sucks for all parties involved. It sucks for Felix because this was kind of your year to prove yourself. This was going to be your big chance. If you're the Chiefs, you just took another hit to your edge room that we're already kind of questioning, and the season hasn't started yet, because we talked about this also on your channel, Michael, but like, I'm sitting here going, this is kind of looking like the same group that you had last year that we said wasn't very good, wasn't helping out Chris Jones. Unfortunately, once again, Michael, this is looking like a Chris Jones and friends pass rush.
Better be a great year from Chris Jones, or if it's not, it's going to be a little rough.
Yeah, no, and we talked about some of the potential options out there on your channel, which, by the way, guys, I mean, I'll just link the video down below, but definitely check out Michael and I's conversation on that whenever it drops, about potential routes the Chiefs could go, because we dive deeper into that. But like, the free agent pool, there's Jadeveon Clowney, there's who's the other name out there that's still kicking it?
Let me pull. I always forgot it. It's Zadarius Smith.
Yeah. And it feels like we've heard those guys connected to the Chiefs for years now. Jadeveon Clowney, I actually wouldn't hate, because he's still a guy that generates a lot of pressures. And look, like you said, Michael, you're replacing Felix Anudike-Uzomah, not George Karlaftis. You just need someone that can give you a couple sacks, right? And can play. But honestly, I think at this point, you're kind of looking at guys out on the margins on other teams that, may not make the team, but, still have a lot of potential. Maybe a younger guy, maybe a player in the draft that Brett Veach liked a couple years ago. You maybe give up a 6th or 7th round pick, add him to the roster as cut downs approach. I think that's probably the most likely route for the Chiefs to go after the Felix injury. But like I said, again, it needs to be a guy that you can play in your rotation. I mean, you could bring back Malik Herring, sure. But this better not be a situation where the Chiefs just ho-hum, say, we like our guys in house. You pick up a UDFA that, was already in camp or something like that. That can't be the answer to this. It has to be someone with a little bit of juice, probably from another team.
Yeah. I mean, goodness gracious. If they roll into this season, and the more that I think about it, like, you're a couple injuries away from really being screwed defensively. And we kind of all thought, maybe the Chiefs defense will be better this season. Josh, I'm not sure. And listen, the Felix injury is not the one that's catapulting this thought in my mind, but I do almost wonder if, like, maybe we're going to see a little bit of a regression, because we also saw, our 3rd or 4th string linebackers get absolutely cooked in Seattle. Yeah. So it's like, man, like, I need to see this defense go out there week 1 and just shut the Chargers down.
Well, and I know this is kind of getting off topic a little bit, but I did say we were going to attack this from all angles. And, that preseason game kind of had me rethinking how deep this Chiefs team is, just a little bit, because I've said throughout the offseason that I didn't think this team had that many holes. I came into this training camp saying I like the defensive line and the edge group. I think it's the deepest it's been in a while. And then the games come on and I'm like, yeah, maybe it's not the deepest team we've had, at least on the defensive side of the ball. But, I'm definitely concerned about that pass rush, especially because that's one of those important aspects of the team that you have to get right, I think, in order to win a Super Bowl. And I'm going to say it again, Michael. I already know the responses I'm going to get, but if this was Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles and a player that was in their rotation went down, what do you think Howie Roseman's doing?
He's probably going to pick somebody up.
He's going to get someone. And I need to see the same from Brett Veach. Like, you're serious about winning a Super Bowl this year? Go out and get someone at a position in which you're weak. I talked about this in the most recent video I did about running back, but I mentioned how they just went out and traded for John Mechie, the Houston Texans. And it's not like John Mechie is a world beater, but he's talented. He can play in an emergency. And the Eagles didn't need a wide receiver, but they've now put themselves in a position to where if A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith get hurt and miss a few games, you're not panicking at wide receiver now because you have John Mechie. You're stacking talent, even where you don't necessarily need it. And I want Brett Veach to do the same. That's all I'm asking of our GM. If Chris Jones goes down, I am panicking about this defensive line, Michael.
Yeah, and historically he hasn't, but he's also getting older. And so that is a concern. And I almost wonder if Jerry Tillery is the guy they hope can maybe kick out to edge and maybe fill in for Felix. I mean, they're high on him. I didn't really like him in the preseason games, but
yeah,
I didn't like a lot of guys on that defense in the preseason. So.
And that's kind of my point, right? It's like you need to go out and get someone from somewhere because, that's where the Felix injury hurts really is just the depth. And I think this gives you a chance now to add some viable depth. And we were talking about Felix a minute ago, kind of being a bust and how this kind of cements the bust status. And this is a point that I brought up earlier as well, and I'm just going to say it again, but because I said it on Twitter earlier as well and kind of got some pushback, which I expected, but it's picks like this that you look at and you say, man, it really hurts to miss as bad as you did. Because when you're trying to continue the dynasty, you cannot miss on first and second round picks this badly. You know, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Sky Moore. And I know Brett Veach has found a lot of good players, especially in the later rounds, but you know, the higher draft picks are held to a higher standard. You know, the general manager is held to a higher standard when you're making those higher selections in the draft. And it just really hurts when you miss this badly, because it's not just that you missed on FAU and Sky Moore. It's that they aren't even useful depth. They gave you literally nothing. How different do we look at this situation if Felix Anudike-Uzomah was like Alan Bailey? You know, I think we'd be in a lot different position right now.
Yeah, I also think that, you know, your defensive line would be, you'd have more depth. Like that's the thing.
Could you used a pass rush in the Super Bowl? That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Throughout that entire playoff run, really. I mean, I guess they got CJ Stroud in that opening game, but I think I could have gotten to CJ Stroud.
Right. Well, in the Bills game, they got some pressure, but they had a lot of blitzes in that final play of the Bills AFC Championship game. That was a blitz that took a lot of players involved. And we know Spags is going to blitz, and that's probably going to make up for some of this. That's probably going to be part of their plan. But yeah, I think we've just about covered every single angle of this FAU injury, what it means for the Kansas City Chiefs. Any other closing thoughts from you, Michael?
No, I mean, I said it on my show, like Felix isn't someone that you're necessarily going to have trouble replacing in the bigger picture. You just can't sit and do nothing, I think is the best way to describe it.
No, and I absolutely agree. But guys, those are all of our thoughts on the FAU injury, what it means for Kansas City. What are your thoughts on this? Do you see this as a big deal? Do you think the Chiefs need to bring someone in? Definitely let us know in the comments down below. With all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com. Follow me on Twitter at showmefb. And then before we go, Michael, where can the people find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report, and that's about it.
And there you guys have it. That will all be down in the description below, as always. That's all we got for this one. We'll see you all in the next one. And as always, go Chiefs.